Along Ohio's southern border, where the land gives way to hills and the Ohio River marks the border with Kentucky, stands the Scioto County Courthouse. Its limestone facade has anchored downtown Portsmouth for nearly a century, witnessing a community shaped by floodwaters, fortitude, and history.
The further south you get, and especially when you're entering Scioto County, you believe that you are entering mountains because hills are everywhere. Now, some people think they're mountains, but they're just hills. That's how I would describe Scioto County: hilly, beautiful, southern.
The history goes back to prehistory here, but the original courthouse was smack dab in the middle of Market Street, right facing Front Street, basically on the riverfront. And then the second courthouse was actually built close to where we are right now. It was next door to the current courthouse.
In 1924, a new chapter in Scioto County's civic life began, as the cornerstone was laid for the courthouse that still stands today.
We have a signed letter from the former President of the United States, William Howard Taft. The letter is from his time as the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court that he sent when this courthouse officially opened in 1927. This being a building from 100 years ago, we do have a mail slot that is positioned on each floor of the courthouse. I can walk out into the hallway with any mail that we have to have, and we just put it in the mail slot and it drops all the way to the first floor to be collected by the Postal Service.
10 years after its doors opened, the courthouse and community were tested by the devastating flood of 1937.
In our recorder's office, we have a map of Scioto County. The thing that is distinguishable and interesting about that map is that in 1937, this town flooded, the major flood off the Ohio River, and the courthouse flooded, and that map still shows the watermarks and water stains of how far it came into the courthouse. 6 years after that flood, the government realized they needed to do something so that that didn't happen to the city again, and flood walls were erected all around the city of Portsmouth. And those flood walls have been true barriers for all these years. We haven't had major flooding like that again. But you know, flood walls aren't the most beautiful things in the world. Sometimes they can be eyesores, just banks separating the river from the city. But a couple decades ago, a prominent artist from Louisiana was hired, and our flood walls now have pictures lining the entire flood walls of the history of Scioto County. It shows our workforce, it shows our hospital systems, our educational institutions. It's just a big history of Scioto County.
Inside the courthouse, more history unfolds in brushstrokes. Murals by Herman Wessel, a prominent Cincinnati artist, are among the highlights. He also painted public works in the Ohio Departments Building in Columbus, now home to the Supreme Court of Ohio.
One of our most beautiful places in the courthouse is our law library. And in our law library, we have murals.
The architect of the courthouse is John Scudder Atkins, and he's from Cincinnati. And he has a connection with Herman Wessel, an artist from Cincinnati. And Wessel was commissioned to do 2 murals here in the new courthouse back in 1926. One is a depiction of Céloron, the French general who came down the Ohio River in 1749 to establish French sort of claims to the area and to warn out English who were settling in the villages of the Native Americans in Ohio. And so here, where Portsmouth is located, you had what was called Lower Shawnee Town. This was established in the 1720s, and by 1749, Céloron came. It was a pretty large village with over 1,000 people, and that visit by Céloron in some ways kick-started what became the French and Indian War. That mural that you find here in the courthouse has been reproduced by Robert Dafford on our floodwall murals. So a lot of people that visit Portsmouth have no idea that the original is actually here in the Scioto County Courthouse. The second mural, also by Herman Wessel, located in the Law Library, depicts the first meeting of a Court of Common Pleas in the Northwest Territory. So this was in Marietta, the first settlement here in Ohio.
Portraits in the courthouse also reflect local citizens who shaped history, like Congressman Wells A. Hutchins.
In the courtroom that we're in right now, hanging on the wall here, is a portrait of Wells A. Hutchins. He was a congressman from Portsmouth, and he is noted for having cast the only Democratic vote for the state of Ohio in favor of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. So he ended up being one of the key votes that ensured the abolition of slavery. I believe that one of the reasons why he did cast that vote was because the primary legislative author who introduced it into Congress was James Ashley. And James Ashley grew up here in Portsmouth. He practiced law here in Portsmouth with Wells Hutchins. In fact, both of them were at the first meeting of the Republican Party in Ohio. Wells Hutchins switched to the Democratic Party, but he would have been there at that original founding convention with James Ashley. Ashley gets elected to Congress, introduces the 13th Amendment. Hutchins gets elected as a war Democrat during the war, and Hutchins then casts the only Democratic vote in Ohio for the 13th Amendment, helping ensure its passage.
From ornate murals to a century-old mail chute still in use, the Scioto County Courthouse still stands along the Ohio River, rooted in the hills of southern Ohio at the heart of Portsmouth. It remains a place where justice, identity, and the shared experience of a community continues to gather beneath its roof.
Landmarks like the Scioto County Courthouse, they provide the character, for our towns, are really important for people's sense of place and a sense of community, and that's why preservation is so important.
I would venture to say it rivals any courthouse that I've been in Ohio. I would want citizens of Scioto County to think the same thing that I think when I walk in here, that they feel justice sitting on their shoulders.